NutraCast.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Hey, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to let you know that you can now grab my album of guided meditations. It's called Sourced by Spirit, and it's on all streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, YouTube Music, and many more. There's 11 guided meditations ranging from 4 minutes through to 10 minutes to help you reset your mind and your body at any time. Okay, now let's get on with the show. Helen Gretchen Jones is a compassionate death doula, intuitive, and channeler who writes about shared death experiences and the essence of spiritual consciousness. Her writing focuses on fostering loving connections with oneself and others, and her work emphasizes trusting personal experiences and the teachings she channels from her team in spirit, known as the A-Team. Helen holds a dual master's degree in art history and theology from St. Edward's University. She is also certified in sound bowl therapy, Reiki, hypnosis, and past life regressions. Beyond her role as a death doula, Helen serves as an intuitive guide, delivering messages from spirit. She co-teaches seminars with her community, ranging from grounding techniques to interpreting messages and signs from spirit, enriching the lives of diverse women across Central Texas. Join us as we explore the work of a death doula and the souls she guides to the other side. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You are so welcome. Now, for those people who don't know who you are and what you do, can you go ahead and tell us?
Well, my name is Helen Gretchen Jones, and I recently wrote a book about my bedside experiences that I'm having with dying patients as a death doula. Now, and a death doula is someone who helps people to transition holistically. With the healthcare system, it used to be a lot of nurses would sit bedside, and we've had some healthcare changes here in the United States, and the nurses have a lot of paperwork and red tape that they have to kind of get through, and a lot of that's taking up a lot of their time. And there's now a need for people to still be available to sit bedside of dying patients. And so that's where death doulas can come in.
Now, I've got a very good friend of mine who's also a death doula, and he just loves chatting about death, and he is also a medium as well. I'm guessing we're going to have a very kind of similar conversation. Why did you get into this? What drew you to be the kind of person that helps people transition to the other side?
I would say the catalyst for me working with the dying community was the death of my father in 2015. He was only in his 50s, so it was relatively unexpected, and he kept his failing health to himself, so the family was in a lot of denial. He had cirrhosis of the liver. And while I was aware that his death was impending, a lot of my family members weren't. So there was a lot of unresolved issues around his death, a lot of grief from unresolved issues, not having closure with some family members. And I just thought, gosh, if there was a way that I could help people find a little bit of peace before they die and help families find peace around their loved one's death, I would sure like to be a part of that. I'd already had a relationship with spirit before that. And so I was always kind of working with the spirit, with the unseen world anyway, the spirit world. So it just seemed like a natural place for me after his death. I just sort of gravitated towards that.
And so can you tell us about your story and how you connected with spirit and like what the messages were that you got that connected you to think, yeah, there's more here that I really need to listen to?
So even when I was little, I had a connection to spirit. If I felt overwhelmed or was having some challenges that were difficult for me to work through, I would go and sit in an empty bathtub in a bathroom. And there I could find silence and be alone. And it would oftentimes be there that the voice would come and kind of guide me through that silence. And so when you're little, you don't know what it is, but it's reassuring and it's comforting. But as I grow up now, I now know that it's spirit or unseen friends and companions that are here to help me. I call my team in spirit a team. So I've always had this connection to them. I was raised in a family that wasn't particularly religious or spiritual in any way, and I'm not sure they even knew what the word meditation meant. And I didn't know what I was doing in a bathtub, at 5 years old, all by myself behind a bathroom door where I knew I could find silence. But I think that was my way of finding a little bit of peace, centering myself, and probably started me then on my path towards meditation, which helps me in connecting to spirit.
So what's the experience like for you now? Like when you have a connection with someone from the other side, is it they're trying to reach someone or give you a message, or are they having a conversation? How does it work? Like what kind of experience is it for you?
With spirit now?
Yeah.
It's different. So I guess it depends on which kind of spirits I'm connecting to. So if I'm connecting to a deceased loved one or someone else's deceased loved one, that comes in a little bit different. If I'm connecting to my team in spirit, it comes in from it feels like a more of a higher, not higher like better, but just like literally feels higher coming into me down.
Yep.
Whereas a deceased loved one almost comes in right at same level, if that's kind of, so it's just kind of different how I'm connecting in. Or if I am sitting bedside with a patient and they are within about a week or so, generally of transitioning, I will start to see their loved ones or beings of light or angelics or whatever it is that I think aligns to their faith that presents itself. I'll start to see that as well. And it just really kind of depends on the type of spirit I'm connecting to how I'm going to perceive them. But for the most part, I see them, but inside my mind's eye. Like if I asked you to picture the beach right now and the cry of a seagull and the sound of the waves rushing up on the shores and the sand beneath your feet, that feeling and that visual that you get as you're imagining it is sort of how I get spirit when they come through. So it's in my mind's eye. I don't see it objectively in front of me. And usually.
As you can imagine, I've had many people who are mediums on the show, and another friend of mine, she actually physically feels them in her body. So if there's someone who's passed that say they had a traumatic experience in death, she feels the pain that they felt at that time in her body. And it's quite an immersive experience for her. So depending on, the clair, of that people have, it can be a very different experience. And I just find it fascinating how, people connect and experience that, whether it's in their body, in their mind, or they get sounds or visions or what it is. So it's really interesting to see how your experience is as well. So, and everyone's different, which I absolutely love. Yes. Can you tell us about the experience, that you provide for people in passing over? and what kind of difference it's made for people?
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Sure. So every client is different, of course. And as a death doula, you sit with strangers, essentially, right? And you get to know them. And they all have, at least in my experience so far, they've had very diverse religious backgrounds and upbringings, different culture and traditions that we are navigating at end of life. And so one situation that I can share is that, for example, Mr. Arjuna, that's his name that I'm giving him because of protecting the privacy of his family, of course. Mr. Arjuna was raised Hindu, and most of his life chose agnostic belief. He just believed there was something, but he abandoned his Hindu faith. And then at the end of life, again, he reincorporated his Hindu teachings as part of his faith. And at the end of his life, his deceased wife started showing up. And she'd been deceased for over 30 years. And according to his Hindu faith, the time limit for her to reincarnate had already passed. And so this was a distressing thing for him. Why was she here if she should have already been reincarnated? So instead of dismissing the Hindu beliefs, we worked within that. Well, perhaps she's a vision. Perhaps, we talk about how maybe he's seeing, because we don't want to distress the person who's dying and say, hey, maybe your beliefs aren't right. We don't want to do that at all. So you try to work within their realm. So we tried to negotiate. Me and my team in spirit, negotiate with him on what he was actually perceiving and what that meant for him. And it was just enough to bring him peace and to reprocess the information that his deceased wife was bringing to him. Another one, for example, was that we used the vision term, was a Catholic nun who was transitioning, Sister Bernadette, and she was seeing a deceased sister, Sister Mary Catherine, at her bedside. And it was really distressing for her because her religion says you cannot commune with the dead. And Sister Mary Catherine was wanting to have some conversations. And Sister Bernadette was not open to that. And I first tried by telling her, well, hey, you talk to the dead all the time. You talk to Jesus and Mother Mary. And she says, no, I pray to them, but I don't commune with them. So it was a distinct difference that was important to her to maintain. And I said, well, do you remember the story where Mother Mary had Archangel Gabriel came to Mother Mary and said, you're going to be having Jesus? And she's like, well, yes. I said, well, maybe Sister Mary Catherine is like Archangel Gabriel. Maybe it's a vision. Maybe it's a message from God. So we went with that route. And she needed time to process that, but she liked that. And that was something that she was able to then wrap her mind around enough to not feel like she was crossing any of her own personal boundaries with. So every patient is different. Every single encounter on how we can bring peace to them is going to be different. If it's the family, that's a whole nother thing. It's about helping the family say what they need to say, find closure, in kind ways, of course. If they have any regrets, what can we cover now and close up any loose ends, both for the patient and for the families? So every single case is, you wing it. You just kind of feel your way through it, and whatever can bring peace, that's what we go for.
And do you ever have challenges connecting with people on the other side? If someone purposely wants to connect with someone who's passed, do you ever have challenges actually reaching them?
Yes and no. Sometimes it comes in so quickly and easily and clearly, and then other times I'm like, oh, why am I struggling so much to get this information? So I can't figure out why there's a shift. Some days it comes in a little easier and sometimes it doesn't. But I feel like when the person has a really strong heart connection to that person, and I've been sitting with that person for a little while and really kind of blending with their energy, it seems to be easier in that way. Most of the time when I do an intuitive session with someone, their loved ones will pop in. And I think it's because I'm already like in that vibe of connecting with that person. But I don't guarantee it when I sit down to do that because I'm just kind of letting whatever flow kind of happen in. But when I'm working with dying people, I frequently see their deceased loved ones. That's sort of part of the process. Or beings of light.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand what you mean. I do a little bit of psychic work, and people say to me, "How do you know all this stuff?" And it's really connecting with their energy and actually just tapping into that, isn't it? And you actually can help them see what they're already like mirroring out to you, and it's just you can pick up on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I will say that after working with the dying community for so long, I feel like Spirit has sort of enhanced, or maybe me and Spirit together, I don't know, but my gifts around dying people have enhanced. So I'll get a ballpark of someone's death. Even people who, like I have one for a family member who's I've been given a ballpark of 4 years.
Really?
Now I happen to know that this family member does not want to know anything if I were to get any hits because they know that I do this. And so I've journaled it. I've written it down just like I do with all the other ones that I get. And I think it's, this is what I'm thinking it is because I'm trying to decipher it as I go along. These are, when I first started happening in 2014, I was just like, am I supposed to stop it? And now I have this information. Am I supposed to interfere in some way? Why am I being given this information? And then I realized I wasn't supposed to stop it. This was already happening. And now what can I do to serve moving through this process? And then my grandmother started to transition and I got a 2.5-year time on her. And she told me, if you ever get anything on me, tell me. So I told her and it happened.
Wow.
So then I struggled. By me telling her, did I manifest it? Did she then decide that was true for her? So I really struggled with these premonitions. But now I believe where I'm at with Spirit and this psychic work that you were talking about earlier. So when you get a premonition for a future event, I believe, especially in death in this way that they're showing me, is on a soul level, that person has already made the choice to die, even if their personality wouldn't want to, on a soul level. So that focus, that packet of energy or that wave has already been put out, and I'm being able to pick up the information in that wave or packet of energy. It isn't that I'm given some great knowledge, of, I think I'm just tuning into that wave of information. And I'm not supposed to do anything about it because the soul has already decided. And I am just being aware of it by tuning into that wave of information. So then it becomes about what can I do to help the family or that person to find peace without even having to tell them about it? What can I do to help them have closure or whatever it is they need to do to feel that they have gotten the most out of this life? So that's sort of in line with the psychic work that you get. I believe that information is out there, and when we tune in, then we become aware of it.
Absolutely. And it must be challenging as well, because I find this too, that you get messages or you pick up on things that can be hard to communicate to people. Like it could be bad news, it could be stuff they don't want to hear. Deciphering that and what you do and don't tell them can be challenging, can't it?
Yep, that's been my path for like the last decade. And now I realize that I don't have to tell them. It's what can I do to make their life as awesome as possible. If there's any way that I can do that, then that's my part. If they were supposed to know that information, then they would have been given that information. I think for me, since I help people to transition and it is my way of serving the community right now, then what can I do to aid in that for them?
Now, you mentioned before that you also do like intuitive readings. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. I think intuitive is just a different word than psychic.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think psychic sounds a little bit like,
Woo-woo.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like on the side of a road, palm reader, kind of a tarot card, which is all the stuff I can do too. So I don't mean to cheapen the experience at all.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some connotations attached to psychic that maybe people dismiss it as being kind of, I don't know, not as authentic. So it's exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing psychic work and I just call it intuitive. And also I have a husband, for example, who super not spiritual, really not into this. And I can use the word psychic around him and I can get an eye roll. I can use the word intuitive and he's like, maybe you're trusting your gut instinct on something. So I think it's a word that people who aren't so spiritual could really kind of maybe get behind a little bit more than the word psychic, but I think it's exactly the same as psychic work.
Gotcha. If there's people listening and they're thinking, I think I've got a pretty good intuition and I want to develop it further, what kind of tips would you give them?
I think the most important thing is to find a time, regular practice, where you find a little bit of solitude. Meditation is how I do it, but I understand there's a lot of people who say, I've tried meditation, I can't meditate. Well, then don't use that word. That's a strong vocabulary word with a lot of triggers for people. Maybe it's just about sitting quietly just for a moment and kind of allowing that wisdom from within to unfold. So if people can turn inward and really reflect and just take a moment in that silence and listen for that inner wisdom that comes through, I think that is extremely helpful. A little bit of solitude every day. And there's this medium, and I love her analogy. She said everyone can connect to their inner wisdom, their spirit, their psychic intuition, all of that with practice, just like everyone can play the piano. Some people sit down and play Beethoven. Some people work years of practice to be able to play Beethoven. Some people sit down and play chopsticks, go years of practice and still can only play chopsticks, but everybody can play piano just like everybody can connect. And I love that analogy because it's absolutely true.
And I find, if you can switch off the noise, like you've said, is to actually go inward. When you remove all those distractions and all the noise, that's when you can actually tune in and get those intuitive hits, and also that, those messages. Do you get messages as well, or like that's something that I get a lot? It's like it's just these random words. I'm like, what's that all about?
I do get messages. I started doing automatic writing, which is a form of channeling with my team in spirit. And when I sit down, I just have a notepad and I just write down what they're saying, and it's like I'm taking dictation, like I'm an assistant. And that has strengthened, and their beauty and their words strengthens the more I sit with them. And they can go longer and they can explore deeper topics the more I practice. But at first, it's just beautiful words, simple words, but it's just enough to kind of get you excited to ask for more.
So tell us about your A-team.
Yeah. So A-team is a collective, and sometimes they come across as male, sometimes they come across as female, but that part doesn't really matter. It's a collective, and I think that when they come across that way, it's just so that I can envision them and connect more easily if I think I need to talk to one specifically. But really, it's a group of helpers, guides. I had a session done. Here, I'll tell you, actually. I thought, okay, I'm going to name you guys. I'm in my collective group. I'm going to give you guys a name. And I came up with A-team. And then my husband was like, the A-team, that's like a crime fighting people from like the 80s, like with Mr. T, And I was just like, oh, I chose a really lame name. And so I was just like, no, I don't want it to be the A-team. So I told him, you guys, I want something that means one, something singular, something that more appropriately depicts a collective. And so come up with a new name and let me know. And then just like right after that meditation, I went out to take my cat to the vet. And as I'm pulling into the vet, a temporary dumpster is delivered, blocking the parking spaces at the vet. And it was olive green, and in big white letters, it says A-team on the side of the dumpster. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was in that moment that I realized that the letter A in the English language does mean singular. It does mean one, and that we are a team, and they need me as much as I need them. And so I was like, okay, you guys, it's A-team. We'll just stick with it. So but sometimes I'll have individual personalities emerge from the collective of A-team, and I'll get a visual of what they look like, and I'll get a name. It's just for me to call them. It's nothing unique or special in any way. But I rely on them heavily. And now I stopped focusing on what they look like, because before I was like, oh, you look a little different today, or, oh, you're presenting yourself older today. And they were just like, stop looking at what we look like and focus on the message. And so I'm moving into that, but it's not easy. My human side wants to see what they look like today, So
I have to share a funny story with you relating to the A, because I don't know if you can see my logo behind me, but that logo actually came from a vision, and you can see the A is circled.
Yes.
In my vision, it was in neon, and the A had a circle around it, like A+. And part of my mission and part of my mission statement is that we are one. And I was like, oh, well, that all makes sense now, doesn't it? Like, these things have just come together without me knowing the full meaning. And then later on down the track, I've gone, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that was intentional. It all just
Isn't it
was
beautiful.
It was all just channeled through. And then I went, oh, that actually means something. Okay, cool. So it was
I love that.
fascinating how, you can look at something for so long and not realize that the inner meaning is there, but it's been channeled from spirit, and it knew the mission all along before I did. And I was just like, all right, I'll just be the vehicle, give it to me. And that's what was created.
It's beautiful, and it's just perfect.
It's just so fascinating. The messages that the universe gives.
Yeah, and I had a session done by someone else who didn't know me and doesn't know about A-Team. And I said, can you give me some information on my guides? And they said, yes. And they were quiet for a minute, and they came back and they said, your guides are a combination of ascended masters, Arcturians, ancestors, alternate dimensional beings. It was all A names.
Wow.
They could have used deceased loved ones, but they didn't. They used ancestors. They could have used you could have used other words for anything, but they chose all A words. And so I thought that was kind of, it was just right.
Yeah. So, how's that for serendipity? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be cheeky and ask you, and you can please say no, whether you're picking up anything spiritually in the energy with me.
Oh, goodness. Put me on the spot right now. Well, I didn't do a meditation beforehand, but I'll see what I can do. Okay. Well, I'll just say what I was seeing when I first logged in with you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when I first logged in with you, I often see colors around people. So maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
So I was seeing green coming across the shoulders, like a green band and down. And also then these patches of blue that are coming in. And that's just, I think, for me to understand who I'm working with in front of. So green is teacher healer energy, and blue is someone who is then going to use that energy in which to teach on a larger scale. So like communication, the blue, like throat chakra. So I do see things in colors like kind of like the chakras. So a teacher healer energy that then is that you communicate. So those blues and greens kind of line up. I know that you're a podcaster, so I understand that communication is already something that's going to be a part of who you are. But the part of your teachings that you're going to be communicating effectively, that would be the green. And because it's so filled from here, the green, that's a large heart chakra area. And when it has the brown in it, that would be the teacher coming through from the healer, which is the lighter green. So for me, it was teacher healer energy with the ability to communicate widespread teachings. So that was kind of just right off the bat, the kind of energy that I was picking up for you, just based on the colors around you.
Fascinating.
So how does that resonate for you?
That's bang on, because I'm also a meditation teacher.
Oh, are you? Oh, that's fantastic.
So
well, then I would love to ask you, if you don't mind, how do you teach people who say, I can't meditate?
Well, it starts in small pieces, it's with whatever works for you. And it's not the same for everyone. You can go for a walk and meditate. You don't necessarily have to be sitting still. And people can do it in different ways. It's really whatever works for you and where you're at. And, there's so many different ways that you can meditate, and I'm putting that in air quotes, but it's really, there's even nowadays this non-sleep deep rest, which people are using as a replacement for sleep when they can't get enough. So really any way you can just still the mind and switch off the noise, whichever way you can. I'm not going to make you try and fit into a box that you don't, because really it's about just getting your nervous system regulated and slowing it down and just chilling for a bit.
And so how do you know, I'm just curious if it's okay, what would you tell someone, how would they know if they actually reached a spot where they could say it was a successful meditation?
Well, I guess if they're feeling less stress and less of that nervous energy that, or anxiety that they carry, if they can feel settled and at peace, if they can feel any of those things, they know they've made their way to some kind of success in terms of switching off the mind and actually meditating.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Anything else on the spiritual wave that you're picking up aside from my auras and color?
Auras and color picks up right away. Let's see what else I can get with you. I feel a little on the spot a little bit, but I do feel like you have a gentleman coming in from behind you. But as I'm trying to tune in a little bit, actually, it's like several people. So now I'm wondering if this is more like a spirit team and less like, well, who am I to say? Deceased loved ones are on spirit teams. But I let's just kind of go with. Okay. So what I'm picking up is, and I don't want to sound like I'm, it feels very, like the two people that are coming in from the side around your shoulder and head area feel, almost like ascended master energy. Like it feels very, like progressive, like very, very almost like neutral. So like when someone comes, sometimes a spirit member will come in and they will be like, okay, this is how things are going. This is how things were for me. It's like they're so beyond that. And it really feels more of like love, but more than that, like a mission to really get a word out, to get a message apart, to really identify your mission and go forward. So I feel like you have a really, for lack of a better word, because I don't even like this word, a powerful team. I think there's too much word with the word, powerful. Yeah. But someone who's really there, it's really working intricately with you in a very mindful way, in order to get your soul's purpose across. And this is more than just deceased loved ones. This is more than like one of my particular team members, which I call Timmy, because I can't, that's the name I got. But this feels more advanced. And even that word sounds like we're not all equal in some way, and I don't like that. But it's very advanced. It's very progressive. It's very mission and goal-oriented on a soul level. So I do see part of your spirit team coming in. They come in a golden color, which to me is more of ascended master color, because oftentimes I'll see them in different color lights. And so golden is the color that I'm seeing coming in, and that comes in from behind you with the blue and green. So that is sort of where I'm at. You don't have to include this. You can edit this.
No, it's fascinating. I love it.
Oh, that's too funny.
Now, Helen, if people are listening to this and they want to also get a reading, or they want to find out more about you and connect with you, where can they go?
Is your cold making it hard for you to get to sleep and leading to a bad morning? Switch to Mucinex Night Shift for fast, powerful, nighttime multi-symptom cold and flu relief. Mucinex Night Shift fights your worst nighttime symptoms to help you get to sleep and wake up ready to go. Mucinex Night Shift. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
Oh, they can go to www.helengretchenjones.com. I would tell you that before I sit down to do an intuitive reading, I sit down with my team in spirit and I meditate and I write down a bunch of information that they're giving me about the person, because obviously I'm a human. And so I have to rely heavily on what my team in spirit suggests or brings through, helps me to become aware of or to interpret correctly. So otherwise, I'll go down a rabbit hole of gray area. I'm like, well, it could be this and it could be that. And it could be this and it could be that, but I need my team to solidify some of that because I'm always open to it's whatever it is, So an intuitive reading would definitely require me to sit down with my team in spirit beforehand and channel their message about the person I'm about to sit down with. So that's available on the website. And then, of course, I have my book, which talks about the bedside experiences and the lessons I've learned from the dying and helping families through this process. And that can be found on Amazon. It's called Healing Whispers from Spirit Guides.
Oh, I bet there's some good stories in there.
Really good stories. I tell you what, they have been transformative for me and my family. When I come home and share them, I'm like, you guys, these are it's just amazing. So.
Yeah. And, a lot of people are aware, and I've shared it a lot on this show, that all the guests that I choose for the show, I read their energy before I agree to it. Again, you're exactly the same as everyone else, Helen, and I can genuinely tell everyone who's listening who can't see you right now, just how angelic you come across, and how genuine your energy is. So, guys, if you want to work with Helen, she is the real deal. So please do reach out if you're interested. Now, I've got the last big question for you. What's the change you'd like to see in the world, and how can we bring it to life?
Okay, well, I think you're doing it, actually. I think my team in Spirit for like the last 20 years has pushed compassion as part of my journey, and they've now switched it up. Not saying that compassion is not important, of course it is, but they now would like me to focus on connection and the importance of connection and bringing peace to the world. And I think that this is exactly what you're doing with your podcast. The more you bring people on to tell their stories, and the more you share your story in an authentic, genuine, kind way, people hear these stories and they can relate to them and they think, wow, I'm having a similar experience. I'm not so different. So it shrinks that cloud or that illusion that we're separate in some way. And then we start to say, well, I know that person's story. I may not like what they've said or done in the past, but they start to lower that wall of judgment and they start to offer that person grace. And that ripples out even further. And that's how we get world peace, quite frankly, is just by sharing stories, offering grace and understanding, lowering our judgments. And you do it right now by having people share their stories. And that's connection. So connection brings peace.
Well, I think we need to just 10x the amplification of that, Helen, and we'll get there a little bit quicker.
I think you're right. Let's just get it going.
Yeah.
So, one story at a time for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love that response. And thank you so much for being a part of the Ethical Evolution. I have loved every minute with you.
I've had the best time, and I'm so sorry we've had technical difficulties and all kinds of, it was all, we just winged it through this.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's growing every day with great content and highlights you may not have heard on the podcast. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, and why not leave a 5-star review? If you're not following me on social media, you can find me at Ethical Change Agency on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and at DJ Bindi on TikTok and Instagram.
Have you ever wondered what actually happens in Congress every day? Stay informed on Capitol Hill's daily happenings with a concise, factual summary of the Senate and House of Representatives' activities from the previous session, free from bias, on the Congressional Record Daily Digest podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and discover the process from the heart of U.S. politics. The Congressional Record Daily Digest, an Electricast production.
Hello folks, Earl Breon here, host of the Responsible Leadership Podcast, part of the Best Business Network on Electricast. If you're looking for a show to bring you some of the best leadership advice from some of the top thought leaders around the globe, this is the show for you. You can find us on all the podcast platforms of choice or on social media by following me, Earl Breon, B-R-E-O-N.
Electricast.